All right. Do you think Damian Lillard could lead the league in scoring?
Of course.
I say, of course, it's a no-brainer.
I mean, I picked him heading into the season.
You did. Wow, you did have Damian
That's
Lillard score.
That's why I said, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I said, of course. No, but for real, it's kind of like I feel like he's gonna have to, because I feel like the Portland Trailblazers aren't a good basketball team. And I feel like he's gonna have to like will them to like victories and have like multiple big time performance, big time games. We're in the beginning of the season. He's already had 2 40-point games already. I don't know if that's like it's great, like, you know, because we like to talk about it, we get to cover it, but I don't know if that's really a great sign. You know what I'm saying? It's like you talked about last year a lot. Like, damn, LeBron averaging 30. It sounds good. It sounds cool, but like you start thinking about it, is this shit really a good sign? So, yeah,
that's sad though. That's sad because leading the league in scoring, obviously, okay, you know, it makes sense. But when you mention the whole like, could LeBron or whenever LeBron scores 30, is that a good thing?
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, 30 is. I mean,
I said average 30. He was averaging 30 last year.
30. Okay,
averaging 30 last year.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy. Okay, yeah. So I'm with you. All right. So I mean, what I would say is, could Dame lead the league in scoring? I think he could. And as a matter of fact, I'll even take it a step further. If I had to choose one player that I feel like could score 60 in a game this season, it'd be Dame. If I had to choose just one player, probably Dame. When you think about the opportunities he'll have, and on top of that, I mean, Dame is probably one of the top 5, top 10 scorers in the league. So, if I had to choose one, it'd be him.
I mean, he's a 4-level scorer. It's only 2 of those guys. It's Trey and Steph. Anytime you shoot him, as soon as you get past the half-court line, you're a threat to shoot the basketball from range. That just shows you how deep his bag and his arsenal is when we talk about shooting. Like, he's one of the best shooters we ever seen. He has a fast twitch shot. So, I mean, I feel that definitely, like, if somebody can drop 60, and it's crazy, it's probably going to be a lot of guys dropping 50. We saw that last year. Like, the way the league is, where everybody is spaced out and all the pace of the game and 3-point shots, it's kind of like we're about to see a lot of 40 and 50-point performances this year. But if Dame dropping 60, he may do it more than once. I wouldn't be shocked.
You think, more than one 60-point game?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I really would. Like you said, his team, somebody got to score. I like Simons a lot, but Simons ain't Dame. Like, somebody got to score the ball. So it's crazy because I think it's going to be like, not only will he has like those opportunities to become the score leader and stuff like that, because he's going to have to, but I feel like a lot of these games are going to be close. It's not going to be the situation where, he dropped 40 in the 3 quarters and he's chilling on the bench. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be like, he's dropping 50 to try to survive. Kind of like what Bradley Beal was doing that years ago with the Washington Wizards. Like, he was dropping 50 and they were losing.
It's fun to watch. Shout out to League Pass teams. But it's funny, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like, the craziest thing about some of these scoring records is that they've happened in such a short amount of time. Like, Klay's 14 threes in a game. That was in 2.5 quarters. And so if you kind of think like, what would have happened if these guys stay in the game? Now, fortunately for Dame, fortunately and unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Dame, you know, if he gets hot for the first 2.5 quarters, he'll probably still be needed. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying, hey, depending on how you look at it, it could be like, oh shit, that's great to hear. But at the same time, damn, am I, you know, what's the vibes? I'm, you know, looking to my left, looking to my right, and shit, I score again.
Yeah, but, it's crazy though. I feel like, and I talked about this before, like 40 is a new 30 in the NBA. Back in the day, like, scoring 40 used to be tough, used to be harder because of the defense and because like all the different types of rules and stuff like that. And also, like, it wasn't this so much space. You know, it was a lot of 2 bigs on the floor. And it was very hard. It's like very difficult to score the basketball. And we're talking about like guys that's shooting the ball and threes and stuff like that. And you talked about Klay Thompson when he had that incredible performance. But you know who doesn't get enough credit for like dropping like 12 threes in a game during probably like the hardest era was Kobe Bryant. Like, just imagine dropping 12 threes, scoring 12 threes in an era with no spacing, where 2 bigs on the court. Like, that's when I started looking. We start looking at some of these like stats and these counting stats and stuff like that for the modern day game. It's kind of like, all right, it's cool. But if you're a real historian of the game, you know, like some of these things in the past, like Kobe dropping 12, scoring 12 threes in a game, is a little bit more impressive compared to some of the things that we're seeing right now because everybody's playing the same type of analytic style ball, 7 seconds or less, layups, threes, a lot of space. Nobody's playing defense. So,
and it's early in the season too. So, but the first game of the season compared to the last game of the season, there's some teams that obviously wish they could have certain games back, but every game does matter, especially come playoff time, especially too when we talk about tiebreakers, especially when we talk about seedings, especially when we talk about home court advantage, especially when we talk about matchups come playoff time. But I want to add something to you too. You said before you have Jokic winning MVP for the third season. Why do you feel that Jokic could win MVP?
Well, I felt because he may have the narrative. I feel like the Denver Nuggets would be really, really good. And I feel like if they are number one seed in the Western Conference and he's averaging the stats that he's, similar to what he averaged last year, and we saw what he did last year carrying the load for the Denver Nuggets. If he does that with a healthy roster, they're going to say, well, like he was averaging the same amount of stats and he has, Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray back, but they're winning. They're the number one seed in the West. I feel like how can you not even have them in a conversation? Now, I know voters fatigue is a thing, but if it's one player, I feel like doing the, how people vote and all these writers and stuff, if it's one player that I feel like may not get the voter fatigue, it's probably Nikola Jokic.
Could be Luka.
Yeah, it should be Luka. Like he's gonna have a chance.
I don't know about should.
He's gonna have a chance.
We're 3 games in. I don't know about should just yet.
No, I'm saying like I'm saying if you're gonna give it to somebody, if you're talking about giving it to somebody new, for it's like if they're competing and stuff like that, I would rather it be somebody new other than give it to Nikola Jokic. If you're comparing the two, I don't know if Luka's gonna go out and the Dallas Mavericks have a great standings when we look at it towards the end of the year. I don't know what they're gonna be, but like I would prefer to give it to somebody else other than like. Nikola Jokic. But I feel like Nikola Jokic may have the narrative and may get the votes and the writers and stuff like that may give it to him if that's the case.
Well, I mean, Luka, he'll definitely have the usage rate on his side. He'll definitely have the the time and opportunities and the spacing to really get those numbers up. Now, obviously, the next step to completing that is winning. But I mean, you're talking about a team that is fresh off going to the Western Conference Finals and upgraded. So
upgraded, and the reason why they upgraded because, like I told people was calling me crazy when I said I had Christian Wood in my top 5 centers. Probably for this year, he helps Luka Doncic so much. He's the perfect hybrid bid for Luka Doncic, and their game fits very beautifully because he can score inside, he can shoot the 3, and he can do a lot of things well. And also, Luka's an excellent passer, and that pick and roll between the two, it's been very, very great so far early on in this season.
Yeah. I mean, you got a big that can kind of stretch the floor. I know, Chris Apps and stuff, but I think it hits a little bit.
It's different. It's
different with Christian Wood. Also a great lob threat in a way. So it's like, you kind of got 2 guys that, fit well with one another. And, hopefully they can go pretty far. I think Luka, especially in the playoffs, is definitely, a good side for people to watch. But
so far, who would you say, like, I'm looking at these young guys, like you always said, these young guys want it now. Like I'm looking at Luka, Ja, and Tatum so far. Like we're just seeing like, wouldn't that be something special as we continue on this season if those 3 are competing for like the MVP?
Yeah, and it's tough too, especially when we because there's only one MVP, right? Mm-hmm. And so like to be one of 450 players in the league, obviously, realistically, there's probably only like 15 to 20 guys that could be in the conversation. But I think, my original pick obviously was Paul George, but you got to toss out, the guys like Giannis and to your point, Jokic and Stephen Curry. And so it would be amazing though. I don't think it's far-fetched to think that, Ja, Tatum, or Luka could win it. But because it's the MVP of the NBA, not just the MVP of the 25 and under club, there's some heavy hitters outside of those 3. But either way, look, if Ja can win MVP, that'd be great for the city of Memphis. I think that'd be great for the Grizzlies organization because I feel like they've prided themselves on that grit and grind, team-oriented basketball for so long. But now that they have a superstar in Ja that, is legitimately a constant MVP candidate, that's going to be something special down there. But we'll see though.
Yeah, we talked about like all the time, like giving guys respect. Like you talked about Giannis, Nikola Jokic, Stephen Curry, those type of players. And that's why we always talk about in the grand scheme of things, like who would we rather have for his like player rankings, we're probably going to tend to go with those guys first. But these young guys, you know, and that's for me, it's just personally like I'm all about consistency. Like, how long have you been a top 5 to 10 player in the league? Like, does one bad season negate the fact like you can't be a top 5 or top 10 player? I think certain players is like, oh, maybe it does, but it kind of doesn't. So, but these young players, I say that because Luka, Ja, and Jayson Tatum, you know, this could be the year where they're knocking out some of these guys that we could always consider like, yo, we're locks for that top 10. Even though some people that already feel like they're in the top 10 now or the top 5 even, as, you know, we talk about Luka and maybe Jayson Tatum, but it's just kind of like consistency matters. And if they've been doing this for the last few years, and if they're competing, these three competing for the MVP, you know, the top of the standings for the MVP like award going on in this course of the season, it's going to be hard for people to really say like, yo, this player is not a top 5 player. This player is not a top 10 player. And unfortunately, some conversations may have to get had. It's like, okay, well, Jayson Tatum is better than this guy who's been consistently good in the top 5, top 10 for a long time, or been consistent MVP candidate and stuff like that. So,
yeah, and I think it ultimately comes down to what have you done for me lately, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and age is a huge factor here, depending on who you talk to, because there's a younger generation who is like, yo, these guys like are top at their position now. And then there's another group of people who feel like, well, you know, got to pay respect to the players that have won championships and won finals MVPs.
Do it in the playoffs,
but, exactly. They have done it in the playoffs. But at the same time, I can't get mad at someone that says like, yo, here's what these young Bulls are doing right now. And here's what the more experienced players, I say, are doing right now. So you tell me which one you take. So, I mean, it's a great problem to have, I would say, for the league. But none of them, they're all fearless. I don't think any of them kind of step on the floor and say, "Oh shit, we got to go up against such and such."
And you know what I like most, that the league is so talented now, where it's guys that are just as talented as some of the 3 players that we mentioned, Ja, Luka, Jayson Tatum, but they just haven't had the same amount of success. And this young group for that 25 under, and the rest of the guys that's, you know, coming in the league, that's going to be monsters eventually in the next, you know, 3 to 7 years in the game. Once these older guys start leaving and stuff, I feel like we're going to be in a situation where we have like, it's going to constantly change year after year because the talent is so there. Like, from a talent and skill set standpoint, yeah, Luka and Jayson Tatum is better than Brandon Ingram, but it's not like it's like as a wide of a gap that people really talk about. We just talk about talent and skill. Now I feel like looking down these young guys, it's a lot of these guys you can say that about. So now it's come to a situation where we talk about these rankings. It's going to be like a year thing, or like, what do you do in the playoffs? What do you do in the regular season? And it feels good because I feel like that's going to make the NBA a little bit more better, where we're not going to really have anybody competing for a GOAT title or top 10 player of all time title, or all these rankings and stuff like that. Of course, maybe Giannis, you know, because Giannis is kind of like, he's in the between, like he's young, but he's still kind of like, he's older as well. But like, that's what I'm looking forward to for the NBA for the next like 3 to 7 years. Like these guys being extremely talented and just competing for like year after year. You don't know who's this or who's that, or who's going to win this and who's going to do that.
Let me ask you something. How many MVPs do you think Luka is going to finish his career off with?
I'm going to say at least 2. I think he gets at least 2. Because like you said, the MVP is hard because narratives and like the writers, voters fatigue and stuff like that. I think he gets at least 2.
2, okay. I'm going to double that.
I think 4.
I think 4.
Giannis doesn't even have 4. I mean, he still has time. Yeah.
I mean, what I say. You know, it's funny. They both get 4. That sounds crazy, but I mean, Giannis is halfway there. Luka has got at least 12 years left of his career. It's you know. So if I had to choose a number for the amount of MVPs that I feel like Luka could win by the time his career ends, I would say 4. Yeah. I know that's a high number. I know there ain't been too many players that have reached that 4 number, but I would go 4 in all honesty. But I mean, it's a high bar, of course.
Yeah. But it just depends on what tends to happen, because like I feel like he's gonna get 1 for like what he's doing right now, and nobody really expects the Dallas Mavericks to win a championship or things like that. But it's kind of like that LeBron with the Cavs. I feel like that's the same situation that Luka Doncic is kind of in right now with the Dallas Mavericks. So it's just like he's gonna get 1 off of that. But then his greatness, once you get one, and once people start, like he's been compared to like, people are saying Luka's a top 5 player since his second year in the league. I haven't, but it's just like, it's some people that feel that way because he's that cold, he's that talented. But what tends to happen is just like, he has a lot of expectations. So when you have a lot of expectations and you start like, oh, you want an MVP? Okay, but you ain't been to a finals. That's what tends to happen. Like, okay, you did this, but you ain't done that. It's kind of like Giannis. Oh, you want MVP, but you struggle in the playoffs. It's like those expectations, if he don't start hitting those other expectations, then people are going to be like, well, we're not going to give him the MVP because it's like, he needs to do something else. Like, he needs to show that, like, yo, he can win the finals. He needs to show, like, all these other different things. And that's where I think it's going to kind of, like, maybe hurt him for is, like, the MVP amount of awards that he possibly could get. Because I feel like expectations, when you have all these great expectations on you, people love a success story, but they also love a failure story even more. Especially with a guy they placed on all these expectations.
Talk to me. Speaking of, damn, that's kind of a terrible segue, but we move. Speaking of frustration, I'll say. I won't use the word failures.
Yeah.
Cap or no cap, Russell Westbrook will be a Laker by the end of the season.
I'm gonna say, I really don't know. It's hard. Like I want to say cap really, but I want to say no cap because like what's been going on early in the season, it hasn't been great for the Los Angeles Lakers or Russell Westbrook. So I really don't know. Like, so I'm probably going to lead to no cap right now because I just feel like it's a lot of stuff that's going on in that organization, and there's a lot of like people having feelings. And Russell Westbrook, if you just watch Russell Westbrook the way he talks to the media, it's not really great. Like it seems like he doesn't really want to be there. It seems like he's tired of all the hate and the bashing that he's getting. But at the end of the day, it's just like the easy way, like you always say, is to shut shit up. It's to play better and perform. So
yeah,
I don't know what this.
Yeah, and that's the part too where it's always that slippery slope. Like there's a lot of NBA players that are hated on, right? Like first player that comes to my mind was Trae Young, right? A lot of the entire city of New York probably hated Trae Young, but there was a reason why.
NBA landscape too, though. They was talking a lot of shit about this and that.
I'm saying though, the reason why Trae was hated, well, one, Trae was hated by the opposing team, right? But two, he was hated because of the way because he was playing at a high level, and it probably pissed off a lot of fans. And so, but when you're disrespected by your home fans, I think that probably takes a huge effect on your mental. And then that can lead to like, okay, you want a player to play at a higher level, but do you really think that you're helping? Do you think that booing while he's shooting a three is going to lead to greater success on the court? Do you legitimately think that you sending shitty ass tweets is going to make someone play better? Yeah. I know people talk about the whole bully to greatness kind of thing, but like, everybody human being at the end of the day. So, but I hope the Russ situation improves sooner rather than later.
Well, I mean, but they also have to place Russell Westbrook in a position to like improve as well. Like some of the part is Russ, but the other part is also like the coaching staff. Other part is like guys being so comfortable with playing a certain way that they don't want to give up their play style to let Russ have the ball more in his hands. And like it's times you watch the Los Angeles Lakers game, it's just like, all right, they're sagging off of him. But like there's ways you can combat that. It's ways that the offense can like the coach can tell Russell Westbrook, all right, if they're sagging off of you, go set a screen, get the ball off, let them come off and hit a mid-range shot. Now, the Lakers don't really have mid-range scorers, so that may not even work. But I'm just saying, it's ways to combat certain things and issues that are going on. Like if they're playing off him on the three-point line and he's in the corner, give the ball up, have a screen, give the ball up, and then relocate to a different position, like in the middle where you can hit a floater or you can hit a 12-footer. So it's ways you can combat some of the issues, that Russell Westbrook has regarding his weaknesses in his basketball game. But I don't know. It's just like it's a tough situation. And then I'm hearing like situations about people saying like, well, is this it for Russ? And that's what I feel like it goes too far. When people start talking about like, okay, well, if this don't work out for the Lakers, he's not going to be in the league anymore. I'm like, that's where things get like, I think people are going crazy, super crazy. Because it's certain teams he can play right now that he'd probably be the best point guard on their roster. And I know some people will say, well, if it's a young team, they're not going to want Russ because they're trying to lose. And if it's a championship caliber team, they're not going to want Russ because like they'll probably want him to come off the bench. But it's teams like right now that he can play for. I think it'd be a factor for.
Yeah, it's a tough situation though, because like we said before, it's like he's too good to be on a terrible team, but not at the point in his career where people feel like, all right, he could be the best player on a championship team. So,
but I don't think he needs to be the best player. Like, look at the situation. I like the Miami Heat or whatever. I support them because Dwayne Wade is my favorite player of all time, of course. But like Kyle Lowry or Russell Westbrook, I don't know. I don't know the numbers, right? I don't know the numbers or anything, but like that situation helps both the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers right then and there.
But I don't think a lot of people are just looking at it from that perspective. Like, okay, Russ is better than Kyle Lowry, so let's get Russ.
No, I'm not. I'm saying, but fit-wise, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying, though. There's if we're playing the quote-unquote fit card, I think there'll be more fans that will be against that as opposed to ones that will be for it. It's not fortunate. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but, right, put it like this. The timing of this conversation is, like, not ideal at all. Like Russ's, stock isn't the greatest. So it's like, well, it's easy for people to forget what, a player is capable of when he started off the season not too great.
I'm looking at the situation. If you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, I just threw that out there because what the Lakers need is a guard that can set up the offense and hit threes. I think Kyle Lowry does that really well. I don't think Kyle Lowry right now, with the Miami Heat, I don't think that's the best situation for him. I think he's overpaid right now. I look at the situation where if Russell Westbrook went to the Miami Heat, maybe he does come off the bench or maybe he does start. But I look at a situation where, like, for his strengths of having a ball in his hands and being able to attack and put pressure on the defense and do the things that he's always kind of done, I think the Miami Heat will allow him to do that. They're not allowing him to do that because LeBron James has had a ball in his hands. That's the problem right then and there. So it's just like another situation. And I don't know the salary caps or none of these things I mentioned, but like I talked about it on my sports page, AKIS NBA, about like maybe Kyle Kuzma and Russell Westbrook. I look at that situation. People are like, oh, well, why would you want Kyle Kuzma again? Because he'll be the same type of player. But I'm just like 6'10", can defend, shoot threes. That doesn't go on trees. He's a wing player. The Lakers lack wings. Russell Westbrook going back to play with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal had his best statistical season with Russell Westbrook, and he went to the playoffs. The Washington Wizards don't have a point guard. So it's teams out there, the Phoenix Suns. I love Chris Paul. They're not winning a championship with Chris Paul as their point guard. Chris Paul is taking a decline. It's like, well, at least Russell Westbrook can come in and actually score the ball and put pressure on the defense for us. Like if he has a ball in his hands. Chris Paul right now is just a true facilitator. If he's going to be a true facilitator, he might as well come to LA. So it's just like, it's certain teams where it's like, if you really break things down and you look at it, like Russ can play on certain different teams and they can get something for Russ, but it's like they're playing the salary cap game. That's what it comes down to with the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Not only are we losing the salary cap game, but we're also losing the actual game. So
yeah.
It's, you at least want to get one dub, but
yeah. If we go back to the original question, Thais, I asked you, do you think that Russell Westbrook is going to be on the Lakers?
I do. Actually, I don't. I don't think he'll be on the Lakers by the end of the season. I want him to, but I don't think he will. I think it's going to reach a point because, somebody got to be the scapegoat, and it is clear as day who that is going to be. Like I said, I don't want it to happen. I hope that Russ can bring a championship to his home city and all that. But at the end of the day, Russ knows more than anybody. This is a business. And if everyone is kind of looking in his direction, they're not about to trade Bron. They're not about to trade Anthony Davis. Who else is left on that list?
And it's crazy, but I ask you this because like they're talking about winning 20 to 25 games. And this is the reason why I said that like I'm in between. Because if they're talking about winning 20 to 25 games, the Lakers' record could potentially be so worse that it just makes sense to keep them. Or it's just like, because it's like, if they're 25 games in, they can be way out of like, this is the West. The West has gotten better. Teams are healthier. They can be like way out of like the playoff even picture, 20 to 25 games in. So then it's gets to a point like, well, do we just keep Russ? Because if we trade him, like Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. It's like, oh, okay, to fight for a AFC, you're not winning the championship. And then you take on extra money, so now you don't have that $50 million in cap relief coming, the offseason. So now it's just like you put yourself in a worse situation where it's just like, all right, you go into next season because we traded Russ, even though we probably should have kept him for the year. If it's going to be a wash anyway, we traded Russ to go on a play-in 8 seeds, 6 to 7 8 seed type of run. And now it's just like, all right, our team is LeBron, Anthony Davis, Miles Turner, and Buddy Hield. Is that good enough to win a championship going into next season?
I wouldn't mind it. It sounds good, but who knows?
It's tough.
It's getting nasty in Hollywood. But yeah. Just like that, another episode, No Pump Fiction. I know what it is. All right. We're going to see you on the next one. Peace.